Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. I want to begin with a question, and the question is, what do you do when one of your very favorite knife companies brings out your favorite model or one of your favorite models, the Formax, in a budget version? Well, you know what I do, and probably what many of you'll do as well. You buy it because you have to kind of figure out whether or not this budget version is going to deliver the goods. You want to know, have they cut too many corners? Have they missed what makes the Formax awesome? Or have they essentially delivered the very same knife just in a budget form with some very minor sacrifices? And so that's primarily the thrust of this video. Although before we get into that, I do want to point out just a couple of quick things by way of introduction. This, of course, is an Andrew Demko design. It's based on his custom knife, the Formax, and the Formax design is based on the 8010. Essentially, this is a large version of this, or sort of. Okay, the story from Demko himself is that in an effort to make a 4-inch bladed 8010, he arrived at the Formax. All right, and you guys already know, like I was saying, I'm a pretty big fan of the Formax already, and now we have this budget version. So we've got to ask a couple of quick questions about this, and you know, I will say I went through a full discussion of sort of all the iterations of the Formax. There is one I missed, but very simplified. There's a U.S. made version, there's an Italian made version, and then there's this one. I know there are actually kind of two runs of the U.S. made version, and anyway, we won't get into all that, but for this video, we essentially want to know, does this version of the Formax deliver, or do you need to spend the extra money and go up to this? And while we're talking about that, we also want to ask, is this a good knife? Now, that is already kind of asked and answered. Okay, you guys know I'm a huge fan of the Formax, and so just on the face of it, I'm definitely a fan of this. And let me give you a quick rundown on why that is, and then we'll get into the details of this knife in particular. Okay, first off, this is not an EDC knife. This is, I mean, for most people, this is not an EDC knife. I'm sure there are certain jobs or certain individuals who live in such a, you know, have a lifestyle that allows them to carry a knife like this every day. I'll give you an example of myself. Today I'm wearing sort of those thin Wind River shorts where they're not very heavy material. The pockets are mesh. If you put this knife in my pocket today, it would be extremely uncomfortable because it would flop around. It's just not going to work. Okay, so for me, this is an occasional carry, and the occasion is I'm going to carry this when I need something big and substantial and hefty, where I'm afraid that I'm going to have to do something with my folder that the usual folding knife wouldn't be able to stand up to, you know, when it's really going to get into some hard use and even borderline abuse. Or of course, in a tactical situation where I want a big heavy duty knife that, you know, gives me a lot of real estate in a very substantial blade. All right, so occasional carry is how I would describe this. And the reason I think this is such a perfect occasional or hard use type of knife is because it's extremely heavy duty, like way above and beyond the Call of Duty, arguably the most heavy duty knife available on the market. And yet, okay, and yet this is why it's so good, it's still fairly carryable. Okay, it still cuts really well, and that's one of the main reasons here. So I've got to say, what hard use blades seem to most often get wrong is the blade. Okay, what hard use knives most often get wrong is the blade. They make the edge so thick in an effort to make it tough that it can't cut anything, and so it kind of loses its primary purpose. The Formax, the brilliance of it, the beauty of it, and this is common to cold steel in general, is they're able to make a really tough, really durable, really heavy duty knife that still cuts well, and that this absolutely does. In addition, it's comfortable in hand, extremely comfortable in hand. And for all of those reasons, okay, the comfort, the usability, the cutting power, and now we can add even the price point. on this knife, you couldn't really add price point. All right. You're paying extra to get all that stuff. Now you can get all that stuff for a cheaper price. And so now that you kind of know why I love the regular Formax, let's get into the Formax Scout and talk about whether or not I love it. First of all, let's hit size and weight. I haven't given you the actual numbers yet, even though I've mentioned multiple times that it's a big, heavy knife. This is 10 inches overall. I'm rounding just a little bit by about a 16th here, okay? Essentially a 4-inch blade and a 6-inch handle, 4¼ inch grip area, and it weighs in at about 10 ounces, okay? So this is a big, heavy knife. This is not a slim, ultralight, svelte little folding knife that you're not going to notice in your pocket. This is a giant tool that it's designed to be just an absolute beast, and it's really designed to be one of the very strongest folding knives available. And while I would argue, I'd be one of the first ones to argue that the strength of your lock is not the end all and be all of a knife, it is kind of cool from a novel standpoint that you really are not going to find another knife out there that can take the kind of abuse that this lock can take. Okay, I still don't recommend you put it under that kind of abuse. I still don't recommend you trust any folding knife to never close on you. You still can't treat it like a fixed blade. If you need a fixed blade, get one. But this is about the closest thing you're going to get. All right. And so for all of those reasons, I definitely find this as an appealing knife. And I've got to add this one point here while we're talking about it. By changing out the materials here and going with a cheaper steel, the AUS-10 steel, which is still a very good steel, by going with Grivery, and steel instead of titanium on the liners, they've dropped the price point substantially. And I think that's important on a knife like this. This is a knife that's meant to be a beater. And buying something for a lot of people, okay, for $350 means that they're going to baby it. They're not going to want to use it as it's intended to be used. When you're only spending around $100, and use my discount code, by the way, over at White Mountain Knives, you will save 10%, which puts this down to about $100. Then you're not nearly as hesitant. It's not that you want to break it. Most of us don't have an extra $100 just laying around to throw in the garbage, but you're a little less worried than you are using the full priced one. Okay, so there's probably a good argument to be made that in fact the budget version is the better version. Now I don't go in for that. I do like the regular version enough that I'm still going to stick with this one, but that argument is certainly worth considering. Okay, so now that you've kind of heard all my introductory stuff, you've heard why I like the Formax in general, you've heard why I like this particular version and why I think it's a cool offering, let's get into some of the specifics, beginning with the blade. So the blade is AUS-10 steel with a stonewash finish, drop point, swedge up here at the top, high flat grind, but not full flat grind. It's reasonably thin behind the edge, which means it actually cuts pretty darn nicely. And the AUS-10 steel is very, very good. Is it equivalent to a crazy, awesome super steel? Well, no, but for really any one of us who's using our knife the way we normally use a folding knife, it's going to be way beyond sufficient. Okay, you can expect performance, near equivalent to VG10 in terms of edge holding, and from what I've read, it's probably a little bit tougher. So pretty nice steel for the application that it's being used in here with this knife. You definitely want a tough steel. Okay, the other big thing is this knife will cut, and that's where I've often complained. Just let me do a quick demonstration. I know I don't do cutting stuff in my videos very often, but just so you don't think I'm lying, okay, I felt like, and I happen to have that piece of cardboard laying around from a previous video. It was literally right beside me, so I thought I'd throw it in there. Okay, so very, very nicely done on this blade. I think the performance is fantastic. The grind is fantastic. The looks are fantastic. I like everything about this blade. I like the 20 CV on the full price version a little bit better, but wow, very, very good. No complaint whatsoever. Moving on to the Triad Lock, we have this massive Triad Lock, massive stop in, huge, crazy, ridiculous amount of strength. In addition to that, this is actually quite a bit easier and more comfortable than a lot of Triad Locks out there. You can, by the way, drop this down with one hand. Be careful if you're going to do that. And you're going to also find that if you've had, I don't know, let's say Recon 1s or American Lawmans or, Code 4s or various other popular cold steel models, you're going to find this is a little smoother, a little more comfortable, a little faster than some of those other models. And I've got to really give some credit here. They did a fantastic job of really, really making a knife that deploys quickly and easily and comfortably. Plus, like all 8010s, or I mean, like all cold steels, it's going to be fully ambidextrous, which I think is a win as well. So do I like the lockup and deployment? Yes, I do. By the way, it is phosphor bronze washers in here. Sometimes cold steel does the thing where they use like half and half. This one, you can actually take a look in there. I tried it on camera earlier. I can't show you, but you're gonna have to take my word for it. Phosphor bronze washers are in there. Finally, let's talk about this handle. The handle is really the only notable difference between the normal version and what happens here is it's just a little bit slimmer, and you can feel that slimness. It's interesting, because it's like a 1/16 of an inch. It's hardly anything, but you can notice a bit of a difference there, okay? By the way, when we do comparisons, I'm not going to compare to this because I have a whole video about this that I'm going to put down in the description box, all right? The texture on the Grivex, that's the proprietary name that Cold Steel uses for this, it's like a fiber reinforced plastic. Very, very nice. And I have to say, Cold Steel tends to do a good job of this, especially this one, though, stands out. The Voyager series, sometimes the Grivex does feel a little cheap, a little plasticky. This one, because of the way they've done it, because of the steel liners, I think, and because of the texturing, it doesn't have that cheap, plasticky, chintzy feel that Grivex sometimes has. So I've got to give a lot of credit for that. And of course, my feelings on the original Formax. This knife is exceptionally comfortable. It just feels great in hand. And if when I say an occasional carry, here's one of the occasions. If I know that I've got some really hard cutting to do, where I'm really going to have to bear down, really push through, maybe I'm carving a pumpkin or cutting up a squash or something that's a little tougher and going to require more force, this is a great option because it's such a big hand-filling and rounded and comfortable handle that it really, really does perform and gives you a lot of ability to put pressure on that blade for any kind of hard cutting task and be very, very comfortable while doing it. The clip has the usual Cold Steel problems. It's a little tough to get in and out of pocket. Once it's in, it's really in there, and it could be bent up just a little bit. Like if they gave me an extra 1/16 right here, that would do a huge, huge, huge improvement. Let me add one more quick thing here. You can, and many people will, bend these up. I haven't bothered with this one, but that's certainly an option that's available to you. And of course, it is reversible. Okay, so the clip is really on the whole knife, and certainly the handle. That's really my only big complaint. By the way, they've carried the Grivex here to the backspacer as well, unlike the original, which is going to be titanium back there. Okay, so that's a rundown of all the components. You can tell if you haven't figured it out yet that, yeah, I'm pretty happy with this knife. It's really, really well done. And it's delivering practically everything the Formax delivers for a fraction of the price. In fact, about a third of the price. Okay, I'm kind of rounding. So Cold Steel, very, very well done. It makes this knife hugely accessible, and it makes it more practical because it's an occasional carry. Okay, so this is not the knife you're gonna, when you buy this knife, you kind of buy it knowing that I'm gonna have to have at least one other knife that's going to be my regular EDC, and then this for those days where I'm going to need something that's above and beyond the call of duty. Now, thinking of a more regular EDC, let's grab some comparisons here. First off, we've got the Para 2, which I'm putting in here not because they're super comparable, because most of you are familiar with the size on it. I do have a bunch of Cold Steels to throw in, but before I do that, let's put in another largish knife here that I really like. This is the Benchmade Crooked River. Mine is a particular version where I've switched out the scales and backspacer and pivot collar. Throw in the zero tolerance, hold on, 0640. I wanted to call it the 0740, and I knew that was wrong. Okay, so here's the 0640. ZT, I like to throw in a ZT when it comes to hard use stuff, although I don't always have one in the collection. Now back to the cold steels. Two knives that I would feel like are very close to this would be the Recon 1 and the 8010. And these are knives that I would say are a little more carryable, that are nearly equal in terms of toughness and durability. So these would be very close competitors, although the price point is going to be different. Now the Recon 1 I think is like 90 bucks, so that'd be a pretty close competitor. I may need to do a full comparison between these two because of just how competitive they are. And if you're going to only buy one knife that you could have with you all the time, I think the Recon 1 would be the pretty clear winner. So let's actually not do that comparison because I just did it right there. This is more occasional carry. This is going to be a little more versatile. So is this. And again, similar situation, although this guy costs quite a bit more. I guess one other knife I can throw in there very, very quickly, and that is the other, or one of the other newer knives for 2020 from Cold Steel, and that's the Sr1 Light, which is again a similar theme in that it's a budget-friendly version of a previously existing model. Okay, so lastly, let's bring in the old version for just a moment as we say that, look, overall, I think this is a really, really nice knife. It's a lot lower in price than the original Formax. Yeah, the original Formax is giving you G10, titanium, 20 CV steel, all of which I think are fantastic. And for those reasons, I still appreciate the original version a little bit more. However, when it comes down to just straight performance, there's going to be very little difference. Yes, the edge retention is going to be better on the 20 CV than on the AUS 10, but frankly, most of us don't need the edge retention that we get from a super steel anyway, which means this is a really, really, really compelling option. And I get why it's been so popular. These have actually been very difficult to get a hold of. I can't tell you for sure whether White Mountain Knives has any in stock now, but I can tell you that if you go over there, you can use my discount code and save yourself 10%. I will thank you in advance for doing that because it does help the channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'd love to hear your thoughts down below, guys. Those of you who've actually made the choice, who've bought a Formax recently, did you buy this one? Did you buy the more expensive version? Or, did you go some other route? Love to hear that down in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll talk to you soon.